Dear students, welcome to the new video on Ozymandias, also known as Ozymandias of Egypt by Percy Bysshe Shelley or P.B. Shelley. Ozymandias or Ozymandias of, you can pronounce this as Ozymandias also. Ozymandias of Egypt was also is also about the Egyptian king Ramesses II, who ruled from 1279 BCE to 1213 BCE, before Christ era. This poem by Percy Bysshe Shelley was first published in The Examiner in 1818, and then it was published in Rosalind and Helen. A modern eclogue with other poems. This is the entire title of the collection, Rosalind and Helen, a modern eclogue with other poems, in 1819. The poem Ozymandias is about the king Ramesses II, and throughout the poem you will find the most predominant extended metaphor about Ozymandias, how it has been compared to the futility and the foolishness of humans or mighty rulers who think that their work is immortal. So it is a 14-line poem, it is a sonnet. The first 8 lines form an octave and the next 6 lines form the sestet. This is how it is divided. The poem reminds us of Shakespeare's sonnet, also known by the name as Not Marble Nor the Gilded Monuments. This is the name or the title of Shakespeare's sonnets, and Shakespearean sonnets are also divided in a similar format, with 8 lines forming an octave and the next 6 lines forming the sestet. So let's begin with the poem. I met a traveler from an antique land who said, two vast and trunkless legs of stone stand in the desert. Near them on the sand, half sunk a shattered visage lies, whose frown and wrinkled lip and sneer of cold command tell that its sculptor well those passions read, which yet survive stamped on these lifeless things, the hand that mocked them and the heart that fed. So what is, we will move on to the next section later. First let us analyze the first part. So what is the poet telling? So he begins the poem first by referring to as I. I refers to the poet. So the poet met a traveler. He might be some historian. He might be just a traveler, because this sonnet got its source or content from the Greek historian Diodorus Siculus, as you will find mentioned in the latter part of this explanation also. I have written it for you, but here for the sake of mention and reference I am mentioning it once again. Diodorus Siculus, who wrote about a massive Egyptian statue quoting the inscription under it, and this poem is a story within a story. How do you understand the story within a story or a narrative poem? The poet Percy Bysshe Shelley is telling the readers a story, which he in turn is narrating the story of the traveler. So it is a story within a story. Okay, so the poet met a traveler from an antique land, from an ancient or remote land, who said, two vast and trunkless legs of stone stand in the desert. Means the traveler said that two huge legs of stone marble, stone statue, stood in the desert. Trunkless means only the upper part of the body, excluding the head and the limbs. So only from the chest till the torso. Okay, so the trunkless legs of the stone stand in the desert. In that barren place, in that desert, without any life, there stands the statue. Not even the head is there. Near them on the stand, half sunk a shattered visage. See, the head is not there on the body, on the statue. It is shattered. It is lying nearby. Visage means the face. It is lying damaged nearby. Near the trunkless statue, it is lying nearby. So near the statue, the face lay, and its expression and it expressed displeasure and a taunting smile, as you will see in the next line, from the words wrinkled lip and sneer. It tells that it showed the statue's displeasure and the taunting smile. The statue which reminds us of the king Ramesses, whose frown and wrinkled lip and sneer of cold command without any feelings. So probably the king Ramesses, the Egyptian king Ramesses, was very strict, without any feelings without any feelings of affection, or without any feelings for his subjects. He was strict, he was dominant, and he used to express a lot of hostility and stricture while carrying out his commands. So he was cold, without any warmth or feelings of affection. Tell that its sculptor well, whose those passions red which yet survive. The poet is reporting the words of the traveler and is telling that the sculptor, who is in turn telling that the sculptor interpreted accurately the expression of the Egyptian king Ramesses' face. The sculptor was so creative and was so observant in narrating sculpting the king's statue, that not even the frown, the wrinkle of the lip, the curve of the lip, the sneer, the expressions of displeasure through his eyes, through his face, the wrinkles around the face, everything is very clearly stated as the king appeared to be while the statue was on the making. Tell that its sculptor well, those passions red which yet survive. Which yet survive, this is a very important line, as we understand that the king is no more there. The statue is almost in its ruins, but the work of art, the praise that we are still singing in the modern times, is still there. Stamped on these lifeless things, the hand that mocked them and the heart that fed. So the expression of displeasure, the hostility, the coldness stamped on these lifeless things, stamped or expressed by the sculptor on these stone statues. The hand means the hand of the artist. So here the artist is the sculptor. So the hand of the sculptor that mocked them, that copied those expressions, those ruthless expressions, and the heart that fed them. So the emotions of the expressions are coming from the heart. The expressions of the heart are well reflected in the face, and the expressions that have been reflected on the face as a result, again, in turn have been sculpted by the sculptor. And on the pedestal, these words appear. What is the pedestal? The broad base on which the statue rests. So it is basically at the bottom, and the quotation is there inscribed on the bottom. The words appear. So what are the words? My name is Ozymandias, King of Kings. Look on my works, ye mighty and despair. Not ye. So you will pronounce it as e. Ye mighty and despair. So he is singing his own praise. He is telling that his name is Ozymandias. He is the King of Kings. The usage of the word King of Kings is a biblical language. It suggests pride. And what is he telling? Look on my works. Look on, he is urging the fellow rulers or the rulers of the other times to look on his creations, to look on the works that he have made. And is mighty and despair. So whoever he is, as if asking the rulers, whoever is thinking themselves to be mighty, to look upon it and say that it is despair, and look upon it and despair, feel saddened about it. The traveler is quoting the lines, as you see is written here. And what does these lines mean? In this line, Ozymandias asks the rulers to look at his creations and get their illusion shattered. As if in a warning tone, he is telling them that their achievements can never cross his. So he is greater than any other ruler. And as we understand very well that it is his futile attempt to keep up with his immortality. He is under the belief that he will forever remain immortal. Nothing is immortal. The statue which he had carved out for himself, hoping that his works, hoping that his words even would remain immortal, that even turns out to be false. So mighty here is Ozymandias is referring to the other rulers who think themselves to be mighty. So look on my works. This is ironical, as I have mentioned here, that even his statue is in ruins. If his statue is in ruins, what work or how can he expect to remain immortal? That is indeed a foolish idea. Now let's move on to the next part. Nothing beside remains round the decay of that colossal wreck, boundless and bare. The lone and level sands stretch far away. So nothing remains except the sand and dust. Half of the statue is in ruins, and it is also lying in a barren place in a desert and very well nearing its decay. Round the decay of that colossal wreck, that huge wreck, the gigantic statue, the high flying passion of the king that once upon a time Ramesses had, all is in ruins, boundless and bare. The lone and the level sands stretch far away. Lone, level, boundless, bare, these all suggests the vastness of time. No matter what you do, nothing is immortal except creativity, except the creation in which your artistic experience or your artistic work is expressed, your artistic work remains. For instance, take the work of the poet himself. How much do we remember the works of Ramesses, or how much do we know about Ramesses? But through the works of Percy Bysshe Shelley, we remember him. More than his life, or more than his works, or more than his personal life, his creations, his poetry, his many other works of criticism and appreciation, both, everything, not only both, everything are etched in our memory, and we are constantly remembered as someone who, as P.B. Shelley, as someone who is quite familiar to us. So, as you understand that the poem is about the foolish desire of the king, and similar to the king has also been equated with the human beings who, like the king, wishes to immortalize himself by erecting a statue, who wishes to do something for himself, hoping that that will remain immortal. The inevitable decline of the mighty leaders, their false pride, even if they are not mighty, everything is contrasted with the immortality of the creative works, just like P.B. Shelley's poem. This sonnet got its source content, as I already mentioned in the first part, from the Greek historian Diodorus Siculus, who wrote about a massive Egyptian statue, quoting the inscription under it. And this poem is, as a result, as you understand already, I told in the beginning that it is a story within a story. It is very clearly stated how, no matter how much you try to scream, how much you try to cry out your works, how much you try to proclaim your works, that and beat your own drums, blow your own trumpet, telling about your creations, it ultimately rests in the immortality of the creative artist, where he expresses his creativity, where he expresses his work, and he remains immortal through his poems, sculptures, paintings, and so on.